Are you, are you going to agree? Our freedoms are waning and we'll lose our liberty, slipping one by one until there's nothing left to see.
Hi, this is Ryan at
Are
Clovis Star.
you,
It's February 7th,
are you
2016, and I've been doing a lot of
going to
research on this
agree?
rancher standoff, this rancher conflict with
Are
the
you
BLM anyway.
just going
Not
to
all the ranchers are
agree?
doing a standoff or
We'll
standing
build
up or doing anything about it.
shelters,
They
but
are afraid for
where else did
their
we
family's
begin?
livelihood. They don't want to have happen
Because
to
still
them what has happened to the
together
Hammonds
more
and the
than
Bundys and
can
every other rancher
separate.
that has been going through
Are
this land
you,
acquisition
are
issue.
you
I've learned the
going to
source. I've really
agree?
been researching the source and
Are
trying to get
you,
to the bottom of all
are
this.
you
And it comes from an executive
willing
order that
to
was
be free?
issued last year
It won't get
by
any
Obama.
easier to regain
Um,
life's
let's see, it's
liberty.
a 14
Strange
page
things are
executive
happening
order.
in this land
And
that once
the
was free.
um,
So, brother,
details
I
basically
ask
outline
you,
14 million acres that the
are you,
U.S.
are
government, the federal
you
government, wants to
willing to stand by
do
me?
land acquisitions on. And I watched this happen with my friends in Utah. I grew up with a family that my father had actually worked for as a ranch hand. Um, the Child's family, who has several thousand acres in Spanish Fork Canyon, and I watched the government, be it the locals or the feds, come in and just really rip on these people. You know, they came in once with machine guns and they were dropping out of helicopters. I mean, I swear they had basically it was just a planned, organized music event to help their father who was dealing with uh, illness, fatal illness that he succumbed to not long afterwards. But they were working on um, raising money basically. So they went and got their permits and everything, and they had security, they had everything in place. You know, ambulance, fire, everything was there for their support if they needed it. They did everything right. They had all the permits, and because they had a suspicion there might be illegal drugs on the premises, they came in with like a raid, a big old SWAT team, and you know, like I said, jackbooted thugs jumping out of helicopters and stuff with machine guns. They kicked the crap out of a little girl. I mean, they have it on video and stuff. You can look it up. It was in 2005 up in Spanish Fort Canyon. They called it a rave, I guess. But beyond that, every time like a cow gets out, or I mean a horse gets out, they have a horse ranch up there. Anything that happens, they get massive fines. They've got jail time for animal at large. My suspicion is, and this isn't them saying this, is me saying this, but I suspect that the government themselves have been cutting the fence because they'll go up and mend the fence, and then you know something will happen that's just odd that hasn't been happening in the past. The fence gets cut, and then the horses get out, and then they end up in jail for it. So I've seen this happening to people that are close to me. That my dad, like I said, when he was a young man, worked for as a cattle hand. Or as a ranch hand anyway, and you know helped the old man. I think his name was Bernal Childs. Helped him with his ranch, and you know I grew up with the kids. I went to school with them and whatnot, and with his grandkids, with the old man's grandkids, and they've had that land for you know something like 100 years in that family, and now the government's trying to do land acquisition on it, and they've you know claimed there's you know this and that they need to protect, you know whatever you know species of this or that, and all these awful you know uh, excuses to grab these people's land. And it has nothing to do with anything they're saying. Like on the Bundy's land, they were saying there's a rare turtle they need to protect, you know, an endangered turtle, and so the ranchers can't be out there anymore. You know, just stupid all the time. Excuse my language, but I am just appalled. And oh, I'm sorry, this is 14 missing pages. I guess it's a bigger document than just the 14 pages. But anyhow, what Obama is doing is the cause of all this, acquiring 14 million acres for the use of the government, and they're getting it from ranchers. I watched this thing where uh, employees, state park employees, literally brag on video at a retirement party about how they stole land from people. Like this one where they had these two little old guys that had served in the Second World War, and they conned them out of a $40 million property, and they paid them only $2.5 million, which, they basically admitted to stealing it and then laughing about it. And this has been going on for quite some time, but now it's in hyper mode because of the executive order that Obama unleashed last year. So if you go to Clovis Star and you check this out, you'll see some pretty disturbing details of why this is happening and who it's happening to, and what the purpose is. It's really startling, actually, and now my eyes are open, and I'm so grateful for people like LaVoy finicum to give his life for this, because I wasn't paying attention. I was interested in this. I was posting about it, but I didn't know the depth of the tyranny going on in the government. And, I've even posted, because I'm a cannabis type of person. I'm an activist for cannabis medicine, hemp, production, industrial hemp, everything. I love cannabis. And I showed how they did this to a guy. His name was, Donald Scott, back in 92, I believe, where they kept accusing him of growing pot, or they didn't even accuse him. They were just doing surveillance, thinking this guy was growing pot. And they did all the surveillance, and they kept saying, no, we don't find any pot. So the Parks Division insisted that the sheriff go down and raid him. And in the raid, they killed the guy. They searched the property, not a scrap, not even a leaf, not even a smidgen of any contraband, including marijuana, anywhere on that property. And, the area that they thought he was growing in was, was exposed to the sun, so they had a little canopy over it, but they were just growing tomatoes, and the canopy was just to protect them from getting blistered from the sun. And so they considered that the premise, the reasonable suspicion to go and raid the guy. And in the end, they ended up killing him right in front of his wife with his hands in the air. And, they shouldn't even been there to begin with. They had no solid evidence for a crime. But they went and killed the guy, and their petition was to grab the land. They had just bought land around his property, and they had offered to buy his land for a really low sum of money, I guess, and he refused them. And so they went and got the land from him, eventually. I mean, they've acquired it by now. So, like this civil asset forfeiture is one way the government acquires property, but the other ways is they have done like what they've done to LaVoy and Clive and Bundy. They sabotaged their cattle, and they, like they did with his water tanks, they put cement in these water tanks to stop the flow into their troughs. They got this little trough here where they have a subterranean pipe that goes down, and it fills that up so that the cows can drink out of it. And they found that there was cement that the government, that somebody had reported there was, agents out there on the land. And then the next day, all these feeders, all these waterers, water tanks were clogged up with cement. And they stole a bunch of Clive and Bundy's cows, and all these things that they've been doing based on a false premise, and I've listened to this. It's amazing the things that come out of this, with LaVoy finicum's videos. I'm so glad that he made these videos. And, it just reinforces to me, and I've been talking about this for a while, but I refuse government help. I don't want it because I don't want the government to expect anything out of me. I don't want them to think, oh, well, this guy takes from us, so it's fine for us to take from him. I don't want to go and get food stamps, even though I fully qualify. I'm disabled. I was in a car accident in 2013. It broke my leg, and both legs and my shoulder, actually, in about 45 places. I had about 45 fractures. So my doctor has released me from work. I am severely handicapped in my one leg and this shoulder, which never got repaired correctly. And I've got all this fiber wire holding it together, and I got a big plate in my leg and 17 screws. And, it's not the matter. The matter of it is that I've been making videos since long before my accident saying that I opt out of government help, including Social Security. I would love to opt out of things like that if I knew that I wasn't going to go to jail for it. But if I stop paying my FICA tax, my Social Security and all that, Medicare and all that, I go to jail for tax evasion. They send the jackbooted thugs to my house. They bust down my door. They take me away, and they throw me in a cage if I don't pay my taxes. So I'm forced to sign up for this government insurance program, which I think if we're in a free country, if we have liberty, we shouldn't be forced into a government program. We should have the option, possibly. But I think even the government setting up a program like that is unconstitutional. Regardless, I want to opt out, and they say, nope, you don't. You don't want to do that, or you go to prison. But I qualify, and I've checked all these different calculators for food stamps and childcare and all these other things. I qualify for about $3,600 a month worth of local and federal assistance from the government. I haven't taken anything, and I got in my accident almost 3 years ago. It's 2013. In a few more months, it'll be 3 years ago, and we haven't taken a dime. I went from making a 6-figure income to making a very low 5-figure income, and very low. I mean, compared to what I'm used to making. My taxes this year are the lowest I've made in 16 years, and now I have a family of 6. I have 4 kids under the age of 11 to feed. I have a mortgage. I have, all of the health care stuff, the doctor stuff that my kids need. I haven't gone on Obamacare. I could get Obamacare for free. I could get free insurance right now with my income. I haven't gotten it because I don't want the expectation of, hey, you have taken from us, we're going to take from you. Share and share alike. Socialism has pushed this land grab and these forfeitures and all the other stuff. They have all these debts. They have 70 million checks going out to people in need every month, and they have to pay for it somehow. And so the way that they're doing that is through land acquisitions and government forfeitures, civil asset forfeitures, and it's terrible. See, after terrorizing peaceful ranchers with militarized federal police a few weeks ago, the BLM announced an effort to seize 90,000 acres of Texas land, which sparked an outrage from Texas leaders. And the Texas leaders have rejected it and have threatened to escort the feds out of their state, which they have the right to do, which I am disappointed that Sheriff Dave Ward up there in Harney County hasn't done for his constituents up there. I mean, he's an elected official. He should be, and I don't think he was elected. I think he was installed because of some situation up there. But typically the sheriff is elected. But he has constituents, and they should be able to remove him from office if he's not complying with his duties to protect the Constitution, to obey and protect the Constitution and the rights of the people there. And if the feds are coming in and pulling these double jeopardy things like they're doing with the Hammonds, the Hammonds already served their time. They already paid all their fines. They were convicted. They did what they did, and they were released from jail. They'd done time served. They weren't getting out on any special occasion. They got out because their time was served. And then the government came back and said, "Oh no, we're going to trump this up on an anti-terrorism law because you had a prescribed burn that got out of control, and now we're going to put you back in jail for another 5 years." And the original court said the amount of damage that the Hammonds did accidentally, it wasn't intentional, so there's no terrorism involved, but they accidentally did $100 worth of damage to about 150 acres worth of sagebrush. And then the improvement, after getting rid of these invasive species and things like that, the improvement of the land, they said, was phenomenal. They actually improved the land by doing that burn and then containing it and putting the burn out, and taking care of the invasive species and the things that they had burned out there, so that better, more usable foliage can grow there in its place. But $100 worth of damage to federal property does not deserve $400,000 worth of fines and 6 years in prison, the year they already spent, and then the 5 years they're going back for now. And so I agree with what the premise of this resistance is by these ranchers. I am no longer, a farmer, a cowboy, I guess. I grew up with horses. My dad had 20 head of cattle when I was a kid, when we lived in Arizona. Was minor, little operation. It wasn't a major thing at all. And then we had horses when we lived in Utah, just a couple of horses in the backyard, basically. So I grew up kind of a cowboy. I wasn't a big, cowboy kind of person, but I loved the horses. I loved the lifestyle, and watching what I watched with my friends that went through that up in Spanish Fork Canyon. and stuff. I wasn't sure, but I thought they were like one of the only ones going through it until I've realized now that the Hammonds and the Bundys and LaVoy Finicum have opened my eyes that this is happening to ranchers all over the country. And I swear it has to do with socialism. I mean, there's no other way to look at this. It is absolutely, Mr. Obama here and other socialists, trying to pay for all of the debts that their socialism is creating. That's my opinion. And that's why I reject handouts. I just reject them. I see the destructiveness in socialism. I see the lack of production, the lack of, overall usefulness of socialism and how it's deteriorated our country, and I reject it. And this is why. I've been saying this for years, but this is an illustration of why I reject it. I don't want the government thinking that I'm taking from them so they can take from me. I would rather just leave them out of the picture. They have no business in my life, just like they have no business in these ranchers' lives. They have no business out there destroying their property or sabotaging their cows, killing their cows. They've done burns out there. The government themselves, the BLM, have done burns where they've burnt down ranches, farmhouses, where people live, and burned cows alive by letting their fires get out of control. But are they getting charged with anti-terrorism laws? No, those people get away scot-free. The BLM can do whatever the hell they want to do. Look it up. Look up all the cows that they've killed out there with their prescribed burns. The BLM, look at what they've done. They've done far more damage out there than these ranchers have done. The ranchers did $100 worth of damage to federal property, probably a fence, I guess, or something, or a gate or something. But the houses and the cattle that have been lost due to the feds, by their prescribed burns that they've done, is phenomenal. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million worth of damage or more out there, and it's tyrannical, and people need to stand up. And that's what LaVoy was doing. That's what the Bundys are doing. And I am proud of them. I came from a Mormon heritage. They're Mormon. I'm no longer Mormon. But, I can respect this heritage in my history. This is what the Mormons did originally. This is what they were all about. They were about independence. They were about, surviving themselves and doing their own thing and, being independent, basically, and just living their faith. And they had a standoff with the government where the government sent, I don't know how many troops, I think it was 5,000 troops down to Utah back in the mid-1800s, because they said the Mormons were in rebellion because they continued to practice polygamy. And so the government said that they're going to dictate what their faith can be, and the government put out these anti-bigamy laws, and because the Mormons continue to practice polygamy and bigamy or whatever, the government sent down 5,000 troops. And there was a big standoff for months out there, and it was pretty tense. But that's what the Mormons started out like, and back in Independence, Missouri, the government bogs of Missouri put out a Mormon extermination order because he thought the Mormons were in rebellion, and they had conflicts politically. So the governor put out an extermination order to kill all the Mormons. And so the Mormons are solid people when they get down to their roots. A lot of these fickle, fake Mormons out there that don't understand their heritage, have no concept of this. But this is how the Mormons have lived, and this is how the Mormons have grown so strong, is by resisting federal oppression and oppression of other people and standing up for themselves. And that's what they've done, and that's what they're doing. That's what these guys are doing. And now I hear the Mormon Church have disavowed these people and what they're doing. That's not the same Mormonism that I'm acquainted with. That's not the same historical Mormonism that I've read about. These new Mormons out here on the West, that came out with Brigham Young, they're not like the original Mormons. The original Mormons that stayed out in Independence, Missouri, like the RLDS, Mormons, Joseph Smith's wife, Emma Smith, and his son, and the other apostles that stayed out there, those people were steadfast, hardcore, stand up for themselves type of people. The Mormons that came out west eventually got kind of fickle. They got mainstream, and they wanted everybody to accept them, and they started kissing everybody's butt. And that's why they're fake, and that's why they're weak, And I'm disappointed. I left the Mormon Church when I was 19, 20 years old officially. I wrote them a letter and I said, remove my name from your records. I'm done with the church. And not only do I think their scriptures are a little wacky and their history is a little wacky about how the Book of Mormon came about, but I also felt this fakeness about the Mormon Church. And if you look it up in Google, just look up this term, and this is what I'm going to end with here, but look up lying for the Lord. It's a tactic they use to cover up their strange history, and they lie to people. They're taught this in like missionary training centers and stuff. They're taught to lie, so-called lie for the Lord. And it's to, present a false presentation to people so they look more normal and mainstream. Mormons are weak these days. It's terribly sad to me. This is Ryan at Clovis Star. Thanks for listening. Please support those cowboys standing for freedom. Peace out.
Are you going to agree? Our freedoms are waning and we'll lose our liberty. Slipping one by one until there's nothing left to see. Are you willing to stand with me? Are you just going to let it be? The ranchers are first, but brother, next it may be me. We all stand together or we'll hang separately. Are you going to the tree? Are you willing to be free? It won't get any easier to regain lost liberty. Strange things are happening in this land that once was free. So brother, I ask you, are you going to stand by me?